Okay, so we're in chapter 4.3, percentages. I'm going to strongly recommend that you read this because there's a file right above the video and you can read it online, and I just think that's a really good idea before we go through it on the video here. So this is percentages 1. A very special type of rate when you scale the second quantity to 100. Percentages. The word percent actually used to be two words, per and the Latin word cent, meaning per 100 or divide by 100 or over 100. Over the years it was combined into a single word, kind of losing the meaning conveyed by two of the words. So a percentage is simply a ratio when the second quantity has been scaled to 100. Some number per 100. The amount or number of the first quantity can then be stated as X percent of the amount of the second quantity. The second quantity is referred to as the base. When encountering a percentage, you should always ask a percentage of what, meaning what is the base. Interest rates are one of the most common uses of percentages. All right, the word percent has two words, percent, meaning per 100. There's the symbol, containing a line and two zeros, just like the numeral 100. Okay, so here's a simple one that you can read. You scored 51 out of 60, 51 correct on a math test worth 60 points. What was your percent correct? So here's the first method. It's the fundamental technique, cross multiply and divide. 51 out of 100 is some number, 51 out of 60 is some number about 100. Cross multiply and divide, and you get 85. You scored 85% correct. Here's a second method you can use. You can just simply divide 51 divided by 60. You get 0.85. 0.85 is really 0.85 over 1. You multiply the top and the bottom by 100, which is 1, so you're not changing this. You get 85 over 100, which is 85%. It's kind of how I do it when I do tests. I divide it and I move the decimal two places, but notice I moved the 100 to the percent sign. All right, so here's an example that we'll go through. You took out a payday loan for $350. 1 month later, you paid back the balance and $87.50 in interest. What was your monthly interest rate? And what is the annual percentage rate? That's what APR means. You see that everywhere. So no, interest is money. Interest is money. An interest rate is the interest paid over the balance owed times 100. It's a percentage. Interest rates are given on credit cards, advertised for home loans, etc., etc. APR means the annual percentage rate. Anytime you see a percentage rate at a bank, it means exactly annual percentage rate. So an interest rate of 7% actually means that for every $100 you borrow, you're going to pay $7 in interest. And banks, it's usually per year, unless it's otherwise specified. So let's do this problem here. So we're going to first make the ratio of interest over principal. I'm going to put that here. I'm going to set this up as a proportion. And I think you'll understand it once I put it up here. Okay, so here is it worked out. Interest over the amount that you borrowed equals how much interest over $100 borrowed. And the answer is 25. It's cross, multiply, and divide. I'm not going to work out every cross multiplication and division. You should know how to do that by now. So this becomes, x here becomes 25 because we solved for it. Now 25 over 100 is equal to 25%. So that's the monthly rate. The APR is different. It's the annual percentage rate. Well, there's 12 months in a year. So it's really 25% times 12, which is, I believe, 300%. So the APR is 300%, which is unbelievable. But this is what you get when you take out a payday loan. The note here is just watch what it is when you get the percentage, right? Most common interpretation of percentages is part to whole. The above example was just part to whole, interest over the total amount borrowed. It can cause confusion when we're dealing with rates that are part to part. We saw that the birth rate in the United States in the last section was 6.25 births per 100 women of childbearing age in 2018, I think we had. This does not mean that 6.29% of women of childbearing age were born, but we could say that the number of births in 2004 was 6.29%, right, of the number of women of childbearing years, which means that there was 6.29 births per 100 women. That's what this will mean here. You can, of course, put this on pause and read it anytime you want. We're going to look at the ratio of number of alpacas in my herd to the number in your herd is 3 to 5. That means for every 3 alpacas I have in my herd, you have 5 alpacas in your herd. It doesn't mean that I have 3 alpacas. This is a ratio, right? I may have 6, and in which case you have 10, etc. But I'm going to look at this. I'm going to scale the second number to 100. So this number, I'm going to scale it to 100. We can determine our herds. We need to multiply. We can do it this way, right? 3 over 5 times 1 is 60 over 100 is 60%. 60 over 100, 60%. But what does that mean? We can't say 60% of my alpacas are your alpacas. The correct sentence is the number of alpacas in my herd is 60% of the number of alpacas in your herd, or my herd is 60% the size of your herd. So this is a part to part. It's a little bit different interpretation on it. The ratio of the number of women at a local college to the number of men is 3 to 2. So when it says women first and then men, and then it gives you 3:2, that means women to men. Scale the second number to 100 and interpret as a percentage. So I'm going to put the proportion up here. You might want to hit pause and see if you can at least get the proportion up here. So there's the proportion. 3 women to 2 men, X women to 100 men. It said scale the second number to 100, and that's what I'm doing. I used my ratio here. Noticed I put the units in to be clear what I was doing. So now I'm just going to cross multiply and divide, which is 3 times 100 equals 2 times X, and then divide by 2, and I'm just going to put the answer down here. Make sure you can get that. So I get X equals 150. So that's what X equals. I'm going to put it up there. And that, of course, would be 150%. Now, how can I interpret that 150%? If you look up to the last problem, give it some thought. And I'm gonna put it in here so you can hit pause and think about how this sentence is gonna be written. So here's how I could interpret that. The number of women in a local community college is 150% the number of men at the local community college. This is part to part. A total would be students. We're talking about a part to part ratio. And you can see you can have more than 100% of many things.